Imagine a world torn apart by 7 warring kingdoms, a time of constant betrayal, bloodshed, and chaos. Out of this turmoil, one boy would rise to become a figure of absolute power, a name that would echo through millennia. But his story isn't just about conquest. It's a tale of whispered scandals, ruthless ambition, and a desperate search for eternal life. This is the story of Ying Zheng, the man who would become Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China. How did a boy born into captivity, haunted by rumors of his mother's affair and his own questionable parentage, forge an empire that would define a nation? Let's unravel the secrets behind the rise of China's most formidable and controversial ruler. His life began not in a palace of power, but in the heart of enemy territory. Ying Zheng was born in 259 BCE in Handan, the capital of the rival state of Zhao. His father was a royal prince of Qin, but he was living in Zhao as a political hostage, a pawn in the dangerous chess game between kingdoms. This meant Ying Zheng's earliest years were spent in a precarious and hostile environment, where his life could be forfeit at any moment. Imagine being a child, constantly aware that you are a symbol of your homeland, living among people who see you as the enemy. This tense beginning, surrounded by political intrigue and danger, undoubtedly shaped the man he would become: distrustful, calculating, and relentlessly determined to never be weak or vulnerable again. But the danger wasn't just external. A shadow of scandal loomed over his very identity. His mother, Lady Zhao, was originally a concubine of a wealthy and incredibly influential merchant named Lu Buwei. Lu Buwei had orchestrated the rise of Ying Zheng's father, helping him become the crown prince of Qin. However, whispers and rumors followed them, suggesting that Lady Zhao was already pregnant with Lu Buwei's child when she was given to the prince. This meant that Ying Zheng, the future king of Qin, might not have been a royal by blood at all, but the illegitimate son of a merchant. This cloud of illegitimacy would haunt him, fueling speculation and challenging his right to rule. It was a personal vulnerability that he would spend his life trying to erase through sheer, undeniable power. Then, fate intervened in a dramatic and shocking way. The throne of Qin, which had seemed so distant, suddenly became within reach. In a rapid series of events, Ying Zheng's great-grandfather, grandfather, and then his own father all died in quick succession. The court was in turmoil, and so, at the tender age of just 13, Ying Zheng was crowned king of Qin. A boy, barely a teenager, was now the ruler of the most aggressive and militaristic state in ancient China. He was surrounded by seasoned generals, cunning ministers, and ambitious nobles, all watching his every move. The weight of an entire kingdom, with its grand ambitions of conquest, was now placed on the shoulders of a child. Of course, a 13-year-old couldn't rule alone. The man who had engineered his father's rise now stepped into the role of regent and chancellor, the powerful merchant Lu Buwei. For years, Lu Buwei was the de facto ruler of Qin, wielding immense power and influence. He guided the young king, managed the state, and continued to build Qin's strength. To legitimize their rule and create a unified ideology for the future empire, Lu Buwei commissioned a monumental work called the Lushi Chunkyu, or the Annals of Lu Buwei. This encyclopedia of philosophical and historical knowledge was meant to be the definitive text for governing, a testament to Qin's cultural and intellectual superiority. While Lu Buwei consolidated his power, the young king was watching, learning, and waiting. Even as a teenager, Ying Zheng was no one's puppet. He began to show flashes of the cold, calculating ruthlessness that would later define his reign. He understood the subtleties of court politics and the importance of projecting authority. One of his first significant moves was to assert his control over the royal household. He issued a decree forbidding Lu Buwei from visiting the Queen Dowager, his own mother, in the royal harem. This was a clear message. It wasn't just about propriety, it was a power play. Yingzheng was drawing a line, asserting his authority over his own family and over the man who had been his mentor and regent. He was signaling to the entire court that he was the true master of Qin, and no one, not even Lu Buwei, was above his command. As he came of age, Yingzheng's quiet observations turned into decisive, brutal action. His first major target was a man named Lao Ai. His mother, the Queen Dowager, had begun a scandalous affair with Lao Ai, who was falsely presented as a eunuch to gain access to her private quarters. Their affair produced 2 secret sons, and Lao Ai, drunk on his newfound influence, grew ambitious. He plotted a coup to overthrow Yingzheng and place one of his own sons on the throne. When the plot was discovered, Yingzheng's response was swift and merciless. Lao Ai was captured and executed in the most gruesome way imaginable, torn apart by horse-drawn carriages. His entire clan was exterminated, and the 2 half-brothers were killed. His mother was placed under house arrest. Next, he turned his attention to Lu Buwei. Though Lu wasn't directly involved in the coup, his connection to Lao Ai and his lingering influence made him a threat. Yingzheng stripped him of his titles and exiled him. Faced with utter disgrace, Lu Buwei chose to take his own life. With these 2 acts of brutal finality, Yingzheng had eliminated all internal rivals. At just 22 years old, his grip on power was absolute and uncontested. With his home front secured, Yingzheng unleashed the full might of the Qin military on his neighbors. He adopted the principles of legalism, a philosophy that emphasized strict laws, harsh punishments, and absolute obedience to the ruler. This created a disciplined and terrifyingly efficient state, entirely mobilized for war. Under the command of brilliant generals like Wang Jian and Meng Tian, the Qin armies launched a series of relentless and brutal campaigns to conquer the other 6 warring states: Han, Zhao, Wei, Chu, Yan, and Qi. They employed superior strategy, leveraged their advanced iron weaponry, and showed no mercy. Sieges were long and devastating, battles were bloody, and entire populations were subjugated. One by one, the kingdoms that had fought for centuries fell before the Qin war machine. The era of the warring states was coming to a violent and decisive end. Finally, in the year 221 BCE, the last rival kingdom, Qi, surrendered without a fight, intimidated by the unstoppable force of Qin. After centuries of division and conflict, the land was unified under a single ruler for the first time in history. But Yingzheng was not content with the title of king. He saw himself as something far greater, a figure of divine authority who had surpassed all rulers before him. He combined the titles of the mythical sage kings, Huang and Di, and created a new title for himself, Shi Huang Di, which means First Emperor. He was Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of the Qin dynasty. He declared that his dynasty would last for 10,000 generations, establishing the foundation of a unified Chinese empire that would, in various forms, last for over 2 millennia. As emperor, Qin Shi Huang enacted a series of sweeping and revolutionary reforms designed to break down the old feudal divisions and forge a single unified identity. He understood that military conquest was only the beginning. True unification required cultural and economic integration. He standardized everything. The different currencies of the old states were abolished and replaced with a single round copper coin with a square hole in the middle. He standardized weights and measures, ensuring that a pound of grain in one part of the empire was the same as in another. He even standardized the axle widths of carts so they would fit the ruts of the new empire-wide road system he was building. Most importantly, he standardized the written language, creating a single script that could be read by officials across his vast domain. These reforms, while often enforced brutally, were essential in creating the bedrock of a unified Chinese civilization. He also commissioned massive infrastructure projects, including a vast network of roads and canals to connect the empire, and linked existing fortifications to create the first version of what we now know as the Great Wall. Yet for all his power, for all his accomplishments in forging an empire and reshaping a civilization, Qin Shi Huang was haunted by one inescapable enemy: death. The man who had conquered all his mortal rivals became obsessed with conquering mortality itself. He lived in constant fear of assassination and his own eventual demise. This fear drove him on a frantic, desperate quest for the elixir of life. He sent fleets of ships, including one famous expedition led by Shu Fu with thousands of young men and women, out into the eastern seas in search of the mythical islands of the immortals. He employed court alchemists and sorcerers who promised him elixirs of immortality, many of which were likely toxic concoctions containing mercury, which may have ironically hastened his death and contributed to his growing paranoia. This obsession with eternal life stands as the ultimate paradox of his reign. The all-powerful emperor, who held the lives of millions in his hands, was ultimately powerless against his own human frailty. This obsession culminated in the most breathtaking monument to his power and his fear: his tomb. For decades, hundreds of thousands of laborers toiled to construct a vast subterranean necropolis, a palace for the afterlife. Ancient texts describe it as a microcosm of his empire, with rivers of flowing mercury, ceilings studded with pearls to represent the cosmos, and countless treasures. And guarding this silent palace, standing in silent formation for over 2,000 years, is his legendary terracotta army. An entire army of more than 8,000 unique, life-sized clay soldiers, along with chariots and horses, was crafted and buried with him to protect him in the afterlife. The sheer scale and artistry of this project are staggering. Each soldier has a unique face, hairstyle, and expression. It is a final, defiant statement from the first emperor, an attempt to command and control not just the world of the living, but the world of the dead as well. Qin Shi Huang died in 210 BCE, but in this city of the dead, his reign, in a way, continues forever. His story is a powerful reminder that even the greatest empires are built by mortals, driven by ambition, and haunted by fear. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this journey into the life of the first emperor fascinating, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next historical deep dive. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below.